Hey, what's up, Kings? Today I got a funny one here. This this woman is on TikTok a lot. She talks kind of to women's empowerment, basically like this very misandrist kind of attitude towards men, and talks about her position as being uber powerful over men. Now she's young, and one could argue she's attractive, although I think that the way she dresses and everything, it definitely makes her look unattractive. I mean, just looking at her here, she looks like, she hasn't showered yet. She's, kind of probably stinky. And it's funny because it looks like she has filters on and she probably applied makeup. But anyway, let's play it and comment.
There's no such thing as a femcel. Incel means involuntarily celibate because femcels, I don't know what you're trying to say. Femalitorily celibate? It also doesn't make sense because women never really have to be celibate. They just have to lower their standards. The problem with incel men is that they've already tried doing that and still nobody wanted to have intercourse with them. Women.
All right. So, this is, again, there's a little grain of truth in most of what people say, but what she's saying is that men have to lower their standards. Men have to lower their standards more than women for just sex. I'll give you an example. When I was single and recently divorced, I went on a cruise by myself. Um, I ended up hooking up with somebody on that cruise, but earlier in the cruise, it was just a 3 day cruise. So the first night, I met up with some older. I was hanging out in the lounge, and this older woman was just recently separated, like really old. Like I was 42 at the time, I believe, and she must have been easily in her 60s. She was kind of, giving me an eye and just flirting with me, and like basically eye fucking me. And I chatted with her because she kind of made me feel uncomfortable, actually. But she started like thinking that was an invitation to flirt with her, and unfortunately, she kind of got warmer and warmer through the night, and she was getting drunker and drunker. And she had that like old person smell and just kind of nasty. And she was very overweight too. So what I would even consider for like a hookup, like even discreet hookup where nobody would know because this was a cruise, right? I mean, we're gonna sleep that together that night, and it'll be it. But it's not just a problem there, because if I did sleep with her that night, I ended up not doing that, of course. But if I did, she probably would have followed me around like a puppy dog. She would have tried to look for me. She knows where what cabin I'm in now, so she's going to kind of constantly follow me around and just stalk me throughout the cruise. So I wouldn't have a chance with this other woman that I met on the last night of the cruise. Um, Now, truth be told, the person I did sleep with was still kind of below me. Like, if at the time maybe I would call myself a seven, she was like a 4 or 5. But this other woman on the first night, definitely like a two, like way, way outside of that range. So, you know, women can hook up with men in theory who are above their level, like their options are greater. So she's right about that. But I'd say most women could really only go 3 points higher in on most days than where they're at. So if this woman is easily like a 6 or a 7, right? Overseas, she's lower, much lower. She's probably like a 5. But here in the United States, like in Miami or whatever, she'd probably be like a 7. So, or maybe even an 8. I'll even throw her a bone on that one. So she can easily hook up with like Chad, a 9 or a 10, no problem. So she's not really looking at this from a perspective of like an old, ugly, fat woman. She's looking at it from her own perspective. So she's not really clued in on the struggles that when a woman becomes very old and very overweight, that her options are like completely gone. I mean, even for hookups, even like yeah. So it just doesn't work the way she thinks it does. Yes, women have more options for hookups, but it's not unlimited. And she'll notice that as she ages, as she gets into her 40s and 50s. It'll begin to be apparent to her.
Women are not validated by having intercourse with just anyone. Men are. And typically, if women are celibate, it is because they're not willing to lower their standards just to have sex with a man. That's why they could never be considered involuntarily celibate. That's called voluntary celibacy. That's called, I'm going to abstain voluntarily. The difference between involuntarily celibate men is that they have said, I will take anything. I will have sex with anybody, no matter what. And they still end up having to pay for it. They still end up having to get it somewhere where it's involuntary for somebody else, but they are, doing it for financial reasons. That still is involuntary. That's bought and paid for. And that's why these men also fantasize about grape so much. They know there's a difference between incels and femcels. And that difference is, no matter how undesirable a woman may be to most men, she could still get sex from most of them. For men, it is the exact opposite. So if we are just talking about celibacy, right, like an incel, someone who's involuntarily celibate, they're not looking for a relationship, they're just looking for sex, then you cannot compare women in the same category, because women are almost always voluntarily celibate. I hope that helps. I'm going to go eat my bagel now.
All right, that's a little kiss at the end. She's trying to just be a little bit passive aggressive and just oh, I have the last word, and I what I said is true. Like I said, if a man is a 3 or a 4, very low on this, he's very overweight, kind of smells, just you get the idea of what a 3 or 4 might look like in male mode. Yeah, his options are basically non-existent in the United States again for hookup. So she's right about that. But again, if a woman is so low on the social hierarchy or the her sexual marketplace value, yeah, she could secure sex with a smelly fat dude, somebody who is 2 or 3 points above her. We're talking about say women are 1s and 2s. Their options are extremely, extremely limited. They can't even hook up with, say, a guy like myself, for example, or someone above me, like a Chad. There's no way she can even get that, even on a rainy Tuesday night where you're just bored. I cannot even be convinced to have sex with a 1 or a 2, even if she came over. Let's say I was single, and she came over with boxed wine and Uber Eats and brought over everything to my doorstep. I still would not want to have sex with her. Maybe she'd be, maybe I'd be okay with a blowjob, dim lights or whatever, but seriously, I just would not even want to stick it in. It's just there's certain men who have standards are just not going to bother with anybody that is that low. So she won't realize that until as she falls further and further down from her eight status. Again, be generous here. And she falls further and further down where she's a 5 because now she has wrinkles and she's put on a few pounds. I think she looks like she's gonna not really take care of herself. She's working on her youth right now. Yeah, she's going to be screwed, not in a good way. So whenever a woman does this, it's just obviously trying to trigger men, and they're just trying to cope with the idea that, femcels don't exist. They absolutely do exist. So I hope that helps. It's a rational response to what she's saying. So anyway, that's about it. Take care, Kings.